Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Songwriters on Process podcast. My name is Benno Papari, and since 2010, I have interviewed hundreds upon hundreds of songwriters about the writing process. I have a PhD in English language and literature, and I'm a writer myself. So I've always been interested in treating songwriters the same way that we treat poets and traditional prose writers, as writers, plain and simple. There is no talk of how bands get their name, favorite tour stories, favorite foods, band drama, or anything else. This is an intelligent conversation about the writing process between two writers as we go deep, deep, deep into the writing process. That's it, nothing else. And with that, let's get into today's episode. And today on the podcast, my good buddy Derek Miller of Sleigh Bells. Sleigh Bells is Miller and Alison Krauss. Their new album, Bunky Becky Birthday Boy, is out now on Mom and Pop Records. As I said, Derek is a good buddy, and so this is actually my third time talking to him for this site. And this podcast is a little longer than normal because this really is truly a conversation rather than an interview. But every time we talk, I always feel like I'm taking him away from being creative because, as you'll hear in the way he talks, his enthusiasm and his intensity, I don't know that there's any part of the day when he's not thinking about music, about what he should be doing. And if he's not creating, he's thinking about that he should be creating. And you'll get a sense of that talking to him, that I don't think he has enough brain space for all of the ideas he has, which I just find amazing. We talk a lot about that. Interestingly, we also talk about the other bands that have had influences on Sleigh Bells, bands like the B-52s. Our daughter goes to Georgia, so we talked about the B-52s and the Athens scene and the influence that that band had on him, also the Cars. And lastly, and probably most important, we talked about Derek's sobriety and getting clean, the impact that had on this album and what he writes about and what that road that he is going down. So good on him for that. Anyway, as always, I love talking to Derek, and this was a lot of fun. Their new album, Bunky Becky Birthday Boy, Derek Miller and Alison Krauss, the Sleigh Bells. Buy the album, listen to the pod. It is always a pleasure. This is our third time talking, which is crazy. But the last time we talked, I'm assuming you're still in upstate New York, right? Is that where you're still living?
Yep. Yeah, I'm on my couch right now, actually.
So, and I think the last time I'm looking at our last interview over here, and the reason why you had moved from Brooklyn is that it was, I thought it was a deep kind of spiritual reason, but it was practically because you needed a place to be really loud,
Yeah.
and not have neighbors. So, how much has living up there? Have you noticed, I guess, a difference in maybe the music that you're making, at all, because you're in a more serene kind of pastoral place? Like there's not as much energy maybe as there is in Brooklyn. So I'd love to get your take on if you've ever thought about that.
Yeah, I'm not like that sensitive to my environment in terms of like the actual output itself, but because I can be loud here and I'm not making records with headphones on, like I was in Brooklyn, I just work more. But I don't feel like it's like tamped down the energy at all. I feel just as hyper and frankly kind of manic as ever. But yeah, things in Brooklyn, everything's open till 4 or later a.m. Like that was on the hamster wheel of death. And yeah, outside of wanting a place to be loud, Alexis moved. And, I was just going to the Port Authority. I'm sure I mentioned this in the last interview. Once a month, lugging all my shit. And it was like 4 hours each way. So I did that for 3 years and then was like, oh, is it cool for me to curse, actually?
Of course, yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, just like lugging all my shit around, and especially in the summer. I was literally like, it's like I stepped out of a bathtub when I got off that bus. I don't know if you've been on a Trailways bus upstate, but it's interesting.
I've heard stories.
It's great. I mean, not judging, just lots of characters. It's like it was intense. But anyway, yeah, I finally moved. I don't feel that. Yeah, the environment has really changed the sound at all. And I'm in just a regular neighborhood. Like Alexis is in. It's not like in the woods, but it's beautiful and there's like more space out there. I'm just on a regular street. It's basically like the suburbs. in Kingston, New York.
I've often said honestly that I think there needs the number of artists who have moved from the city to upstate New York. They need to do one of those like indie bus tours like they do in LA of all the famous artist
Yeah,
house. I mean, there are
lots
so
of
many. Yeah.
lots of Brooklyn transplants up here.
But
Definitely.
but do you find I get the sense that you probably are disciplined anyway, but you don't find that having less distractions
No, no, that was
focuses.
it definitely helped focus me. Like, that's
Okay.
the thing when I was saying, like, everything's open till 4 a.m. in Brooklyn. I was out till then, like, multiple nights a week. And, yeah, it's just, like, I think I moved when I was 39. I'm 43 now. Yeah, just, like, catching your reflection in the bathroom mirror at 38 at 3 in the morning, like, it's just not a good feeling. It was fine when it was a blast actually in my late 20s and 30s. Um, but yeah, it was just catching up to me. And frankly, I always kind of knew it was going to be an issue and I would have to get out. That's part of what I loved about Brooklyn. I mean, being there for even 11 years, I'd go over the Williamsburg Bridge and in year 10, I'd be like, holy shit, I'm in the city. Like, I can't believe I'm up here. Like, I can't believe I'm not in Florida just trying to save to move up here. That never wore off. So I always felt like a visitor, but in a good way. It was home, but like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Is it harder to get inspiration? Because I think I hear a lot of writers, like songwriters or prose writers, say the city gives them things to write about. Um,
Um, yeah, I honestly, I never felt that way. Like, wherever I was, like when I joined Poison the Well in '98, I was living in my parents' house. I was in high school and I could write there. Then we moved, like, me and the Poison Well dudes moved to Riverside, California, which was really interesting. I mean, like, I'd wake up every morning and like meth peeps had like siphoned my gas and like stolen shit out of my truck. And it's whatever, cool, I can write there. Back to South Florida on my own, up to Brooklyn. I lived in a shoebox in Brooklyn when I first moved in March of '08 and it was fine. Like, I didn't even buy a bed on purpose. I was like, I'm gonna sleep in a sleeping bag on the floor until I have a band up and running, or like if I found the person that I was looking for to make records with, and I stuck to that. And yeah, I think I'm just kind of a blessing and a curse of like having an addict brain. Is I'm always pretty hyped naturally. You know what I mean? It's just like it's kind of a natural high that keeps me very excited and inspired. Yeah, I'm just not like it's not like I don't have bad days. It's just that, when I'm taking care of myself, my default setting is like, yo, did you hear anything good? Like, cause I just heard this. Have you heard it? Blah, blah, blah. It's fucking this, is that. What have you seen lately? You read anything good? I'm just always very hungry for, whatever creativity is happening out there. And I feel like that is a lot of what feeds my own.
do you? I know, and I certainly have gotten that sense all the time that we've talked. That you're kind of always hyper aware. I mean, of everything around you, or just that always want to create. But do you ever? I hear some songwriters tell me that they deliberately set aside time not to create, just to kind of give their brains a
Yeah.
rest. So do you
Ye-
do that too?
I do. Absolutely. Like every morning when I wake up, like a regular day is I'll wake up, open up a session, listen a little bit, just, I mean, like 5 minutes, and then go to the gym, which will just help like set the table for me making good decisions for the rest of the day and night. Like a little bit of vanity, but honestly, it's mainly for the endorphins and it helps me to, yeah, not get fucked up. So, come home. And even though the session will be open, a lot of times I'll just spend the day listening to other people's records. If I have errands to do, take care of that. Come home, listen a little more, cook dinner, maybe watch a movie or a game. And maybe I didn't even play a single note, but I'm just kind of listening to whatever new idea is exciting me. And I could do that for 2 or 3 days in a row without, playing a note. But when I'm out shopping for groceries, I'm thinking about the session too as well. So yeah, I guess it is important to try to turn it off. And again, I'm like when I'm in the middle of doing an interview, even though we've done this a bunch and we're friends, I get real hyper just talking about the band. So it's not like I'm like this 24/7. I am on balance, like yeah, like pretty up. But yeah, I don't know. I guess taking a break, to be honest, for me was like turning my brain off with alcohol or whatever, which is something obviously I manage and 100% drug free these days. So maybe that's probably a big part of what I was doing with that stuff is just numbing out.
the other thing I interviewed, I just had on Ben Montench, the keyboardist
Incredible.
for.
I started Mike Campbell's book yesterday.
Oh, did you? Yeah, I got to read that. But
It just came out. Yeah, Ben Mont's
yeah,
incredible.
and so I had Ben Montench on the pod, and he had said, and we talked about the fact that that the worst thing to do as a writer is to think that the writing process is only taking place when you're writing. Your writing
Yeah,
process taking place as you're eating, sleeping, drinking, working out, wandering. You got to look at it that way. And I hear that's what you're saying is you may not be writing, but something's always going on up there, right? And I think
always.
that
Oh,
helps.
dude, absolutely. Like I've said this like almost verbatim, but when I see somebody hit a buzzer beater, like that makes me want to wake up and make a great record. It doesn't matter what the medium is. A great meal, a great bite of food. I mean, you could be litigating, and if you do it with passion and you love it, and I could see that on TV, I'd be hyped. I'd be like, damn. I think the whole thing, it always comes down to, um, a human being doing something that's really hard very well because they love it so much. And I don't care what medium, for real. Um, so yeah, there's just a lot of that. It kind of generally falls under the umbrella of showbiz or entertainment, but it always feels like so much more to me. But yeah, just because I don't have I'm not banging on a drum machine or I don't have a guitar in my hands doesn't mean that, the creative process isn't happening. So I'm with Ben Mont. I'm going to go first name only. That dude's bad as hell, man.
um, so yeah, I have to say, he told me an amazing story during the episode where he said that during that they were on stage one time, and and the back of Mike Campbell's shirt made him change the riff he was playing. There was something about the pattern of Mike Campbell's shirt, the back of it, that made him change the riff. And that was like mind blowing that he'd see something and that turned it into sound for him.
That's incredible. Yeah, dude. I'm probably like 30 pages away from him meeting Benmont. He just met Tom in the book. I'm like 50 or 60 pages in. But I texted my friend who's a huge Tom Petty fan, and I was like, this sounds like a blurb, but Mike writes like how he plays guitar. There's like no flash, but it's so efficient. Serve the song, serve the story. Like his writing is lean. Like I swear to God, he writes like he plays guitar. And he's got a little help from, oh God, I forget the name of the journalist or author who pitched in on Keith Richards' book.
Yeah.
But it's just so inimitably their voice. It's them. And I love that it translates into different medium. Beautiful.
So when I do these interviews, there are some artists I go back to that I tell stories who I've interviewed, and your name actually comes up a lot when I interview people
Oh
because
man, that's incredible.
here's why. And I'm reading what you said last time. That last time we had talked, and I tell people this all the time, that you say that you have to write watching LSU, watching football
Yeah, that
with
helps.
the sound off.
Yeah.
And I just found that to be amazing. I know you have it on mute, but are you still doing that? And I have so many follow-ups that of course I know after the fact. I look at that. I wish you would ask them more about that. But how did you even discover that, and how does that work? Because I just feel like if you're watching, you're not watching, but it's on. Like, explain how that works exactly.
It's it just relieves the pressure of like having to come up with something in the moment. Like let's say you're working throughout the day, unless you have like somebody in your studio and they're paying for to be there for, 10 productive hours or however long. If it's just me at home, just like kicking it, whatever, then yeah, I can afford to like have a game on. I'm watching, something happens, cuts the commercial break. And I'm like, "Huh, where did I leave off?" Space bar. And I'm like, "Oh shit. Yeah. Oh man, I need a new hat here," or whatever it is. Or like, it's just I think that's what it is. Like and maybe it's a little bit of ADD, but I think it just helps to stretch the creative process out. And again, not put pressure on myself to have the answers immediately. I do Quincy's doc on Netflix is a big one for me as well. Rest in peace. But yeah, I think that came out in 2019. So that's been a big staple for me when I'm making records. And Quincy, it's like, even when he's not saying this, his work ethic alone is screaming at you. Like, why are you watching my shit? Do your shit. I want you to be great. And that was just such in his nature and part of what made him great. So I'll have the Quincy Jones doc up and paused when I'm working. And then when I hit a little bit of a wall, just take a break, hit play, watch 10 minutes of Quincy. And then I'm like, all right, he'd be working on his shit. I was like, cool. It's just kind of like, it's just like kind of gets you heated up for a minute. And yeah, then you get back to work.
So as you're watching on mute, you're not.
Well, that doc would be like if I'm watching the Quincy doc, I would just, I'd have volume for that. But for a game, yeah, it's muted and I'm probably rolling around whatever issue I'm having in the track in my head. But I don't know because it's definitely what people would describe as flow state, where I'm kind of seamlessly going back and forth. And, a 10-hour day will disappear in the best way. And by the end of it, there's like hopefully some fresh ideas coming out of the speakers. But yeah,
I'm
I don't
just
know.
amazed that you can focus on the game and still be thinking about creative ideas.
Yeah, I don't want it to make it sound like it's like a supercomputer brain thing because I'm the opposite of that. I think of myself more as like a caveman, just like responding to impulses. And like the game for me is controlling those so I don't just like bash my head in with a club or something like like I just have to I don't know. Yeah, I wish I had something sharper or more articulate or intelligent to say about it. But I really do think it's just like giving yourself a beat to like not have to solve whatever issue you have in your track or why it's not working for you. It's like, cool, I'll just like eyes up, watch a few plays, and then it's not even like I'm chasing it down in that moment. It's just even taking a breath and then listening again with fresh ears helps. So I think that's mainly it.
And isn't it so much about confidence though? Like I'm big on the ritual. Um, like if I'm writing in this chair, I will revise in the chair behind me. That's my quirk. Like I never write and
Yeah.
revise in the same place, but you have this idea that this works for you, and even if and it's about that confidence of thinking, okay, this is where it's. I mean, I had John Darnielle on from the Mountain Goats
Mountain
once, and
goats, yeah, of course. And an
yeah, and
author
he
as well.
said, he wrote an entire album at the dining room table because his quote was, "That's where the mojo was."
Yes, exactly. It's like I never want to jinx it. Like even though Saturdays and Sundays are good for writing, I'm never like, okay, it's got to happen. I'm like, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Don't worry about it. Secretly in the back of my mind, I'm like, man, I hope today's one of the days. Because you never know. It's like the thing, right? Like you throw a line in, you never know if you're going to catch anything. But just even the act of sitting down and throwing the line in, like this is maybe a quick aside, but for like any like my when I'm working on something and it's not there are no sparks, I never think of it as me spinning my wheels. And anybody listening, if you make records, actually try to picture this because this is my visualization. It's like I'm out in the yard with a shovel and I'm digging in the ground. And like there's a great idea somewhere in the ground. It might be 2 feet in front of me, it might be 200 feet down. But every single day, every single moment that you set up and actually get to work, you're actively getting a little bit closer. Like I picture myself moving dirt, and I am no matter what it feels like, I am getting closer to the idea. And so sometimes it happens in 5 minutes, and sometimes it takes 6 months. But like you just dig and dig and dig until one day, just out of the blue, your shovel goes clink, and you're like, "Oh fuck, there it is." So yeah, I mean, I'm not a guy who's sitting on like 200 instrumentals, like a bunch of sessions with all this great stuff. Like I've probably got 18, 19, or 20 sessions right now that have some promising stuff. Like a lot of producers like will have 100. So yeah, there's a lot of time, so you got to imagine that like if I'm lucky, I get like 10 to 12 ideas that I feel like are worth completing, mixing, and mastering a year. The rest of the time I'm just thinking, I'm listening, I'm kind of starting and being like, there's nothing there. But when a good idea does hit, it's like I can't get it done fast enough. I get like the amount of energy. And again, it comes back to it being like a natural high. It's definitely a biological, physiological thing. Dopamine, adrenaline, excitement, passion for sound and records. I text Alexis like I was telling God, what did I say the other like a few days ago in an interview? I was like, I'll text mom or call her, be like, "Yo, I got something. What are you doing?" And I think my joke was like, she could be like, "I'm giving someone CPR," and I'd be like, "You let him die. You got to hear this right now." Like, and like I'm joking, obviously, but I get very excited, and I think like if our music is loud or abrasive or exciting, or excuse me, sounds excited, then I guess that's probably why. Because yeah, when it's going well, those are truly some of the best days of the year for me. It's like that's the moment I wait for. I just talked a lot. Sorry.
No, no, no. I love hearing that, I've got a couple thoughts on that. One is, I had interviewed the writer Anthony Doerr a few years ago, and he wrote the book All the Light We Cannot See that won the
Oh,
Pulitzer
okay.
Prize.
Yeah.
And I asked him about writer's block, and I'll never forget it because his quote was, he goes, "I don't believe in writer's block." He said, "Writer's block is a failure of courage." In other words,
Yeah.
you can't be afraid to write the bad stuff. Um, if you're only gonna write when the good stuff is happening, first of all, that's really kind of pompous for you to think, oh, you know, I'm only gonna write the good stuff. But
I'm
it's
gonna
like,
cherry pick. Yeah.
yeah, but it's like you can't get to the good stuff unless you write the bad stuff first. But the failure of courage thing really stuck with me because it was, and I've got this William Faulkner quote up here where Faulkner said, "Get it down, take chances. It may be bad, but it's the only way you can do anything good."
Exactly, and that's why I was, like, just trying to hammer home, like, the visual is, like, it's like digging. Picture yourself, even if you didn't even if again, if there was no sparks that day, you get in bed at night, you actively remove some of the dirt that's between you and the great idea. Like, there is no such thing as spinning your wheels and wasting time if you're working on it. So, that's I mean, because how do you visualize writing something? You can visualize throwing a 70-yard touchdown pass or whatever. You can visualize, like I said, hitting a buzzer beater. Athletes do it all the time. How the fuck do you visualize the creative process? It's like, what do you picture yourself writing a cool riff? Like, it's just not the same. Like, here, I'm in my kitchen with my guitar, like a dumbass. Like, it's hard to picture the victorious moment when something exciting happens. But yeah, so that's why I use the digging analogy. All right, I'll stop talking about that one.
No, that's a good one, and I always tell writers, when I start to write, I have no right knowing what that thing is supposed to look like at the end.
Yeah.
The biggest mistake a writer, I think, or a songwriter, anything, is to say, I want to. Here's where I'm going to end up. Here's how I'm going to get there. Because if I think I know how it's supposed to be, I'm not going to make any detours. I'm not going to make any chances. I'm not going to take any chances and make mistakes. But I don't think I have any right knowing. And when Mark and I, just to touch on our book briefly, when Mark and I wrote the book, it's crazy how different that book ended up than from what our
What it was
first thought
supposed to
was.
be.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, that's beautiful. So there's a song on Funky Becky called Badly. It's the newest song on the record. It's our favorite song on the record. It's definitely like the most playful one. It's like borderline, just like goofy as hell, almost hard to take seriously. And like the first thing you hear Alexa say over the instrumental when the riff comes in is, "You got to be kidding me." It was like her like quote reaction video to like, "We're not doing this." But as far as like, left turns or surprises, the first version of that song we worked on like 7 years ago. It's currently in G and it's like 130 BPM. It was an A, it was at 90 BPM. It was this totally different thing, completely different. And I was watching Once Upon a Time in Queens, the Mets documentary, the 30 for 30, which is incredible. And somebody from the Mets PR department had hired like some studio dudes to write the Mets theme song, whatever year it was, like 86, 7 or some shit. And these like this super corny but rad drum kicks it off. It's not a Linn drum, but it sounds similar. And I'm listening to it, and for some reason that riff popped into my head at that tempo in a different key. And I literally like paused it, rewinded it, hit fucking my voice recorder, and just kind of hummed it over the loop. And there's like narration going over it and everything. You got to hear this. The song is ridiculous. I mean, it's
Yeah.
great, but it's definitely a novelty thing. Um, and I remember texting Alexis about it the next day, be like, "I think I might have cracked the code on Badly." And that's what it was. It was like a Mets documentary and just like totally unrelated. And yeah, it changed everything.
Do you have a litmus test for, oh, this thing has legs, I'm going to see it through until the end, or, yeah,
Yes.
we got to give up on this?
No, definitely. It's all feeling. And I know that's like such a corny like answer and kind of abstract. Back to Quincy. Quincy called goosebumps or chill bumps or the hair standing up on the back of your neck. He called that God's divining rod. That's like God entering the room. And whether you believe in God or not, I probably don't, but I don't really know. It's kind of one of those things at 43. I'm like, well, it's purely speculative and it doesn't change the way I live my life. But I know exactly what he's talking about. Like, I know all I have to go on when I'm making records is, does it give me the feeling? That's all it is. Like, does it make me go, holy shit? And I remember the first time I ever got that from something I wrote. I was 16. I joined Poison Well, and there's a song on the first record called Nerdy, and I remember writing the intro, which is like this like little harmonic thing laid over some palm muted power chords. And I remember combining those things, and it gave me the feeling that my favorite hardcore records at that moment had given me. Doesn't mean they're as good, that it was as good. All it means is that it gave me the same feeling that my favorite records were giving me, but I had made it. And that was like the first domino. So that's all it is. That's the gauge. Is like, am I text bombing Alexis when I'm working on it? You know what I mean? If she gets 100 texts from me going, "Hey, I think I might have something," that'll be noon. And then like 1:30, I'm like, yo, I think I got something. And then, she'll usually be like, "Oh shit, fuck yeah, well, let me hear it." And then at 9 p.m., because I'll still be working, I'll be like, "Oh, we definitely fucking got something, blah, blah, blah." You get here within 48 hours or whatever. So it's always just about the enthusiasm that it generates in the room. And I don't know what you would yeah, I don't know how else to describe it, but yeah, you know what I
But is
mean?
there a negative? I guess, how do you know? I just can't imagine you saying, "Yeah, like this thing isn't gonna.
Oh,
We're
bro,
done
it
with
all
this."
sucks. I'm like here's the secret is like I could be like only in private, I could be a very cold and dismissive critic, certainly of my own work and maybe of others as well. Like, again, like there's so much stuff that I love that I would never go in on anything that I didn't like, especially publicly. Like, even if it's like, 10 people reading or, maybe it's a million people listening to a podcast, whatever. But yeah, I think I can be, there's a cynical part of my brain that'll like start chirping at me. Um, yeah, when I just don't believe it, like it's just always obvious to me when something doesn't have the thing because it just I'm not listening to it. Like another thing, a litmus test, so to speak, is like if I have a bounce of it on my phone, like a little rough idea. Back in the day, it would have been CDRs. And when I was a little kid, it was like cassettes when I had a 4 track. If I have to listen to that idea, 10 times a day, it could be like a 20-second little clip. Like I got a drum loop and a riff that I like. If I have to like stop what I'm doing and listen to that like 6 times in a row randomly in the middle of the day, and then like get in bed at night and listen to it like 10 times in a row, that is usually a really good indication that there's something there. And look, it's not like infallible, like we put out a lot of records, like there are a lot of misses, like there's tracks that like maybe it's cool, it's just not what we did best or what we do best, but we gave it a shot, we loved it in the moment, and then you fall out of love with it, and that's fine. But, hopefully some of the tracks stand the test of time for you. And for me, that's the case, like, yeah, like Comeback Kid on Rain of Terror still gives me chills. Like I love that song. There's tracks scattered throughout the catalog that I still really love. But yeah, I think it's just yeah, I don't know. It's just being hyped up on it.
So those songs that happen the fastest, those lightning in the bottle moments where it just comes out all at once, are you less likely to mess with those because it's almost like this a spiritual thing?
I
Yeah.
Alexa saves me from that because I will fucking work it into the ground. It'll be finished and like it's done. And Alexis will be like, "I know you're gonna want to do the thing where you just like tear it to shreds." She's like, "It's done." I'm like, okay, whatever, get out of here, go home. And like, the next day I'm like, "All right, look, I like added a synth or sped it up 3 BPM or did this or that." And she's like, "It sucks. It was finished. Don't fuck with it." Like she is I think that's part of why our like obviously as friends, but as collaborators, it works so well because she is very measured. She's very calm. Like she's an excited person, but she's not as impulsive or, her emotions are, she knows how to keep them in check. And I'm still learning how to do that at 43. So yeah, she's very calm and rational. She's the one who will usually call time on something because I'll just work it forever. And I trust her. If it's like I've also never played her something that I like if that I thought was great that she was like, "Yo, this sucks." And I'm like, "Oh, well, we're gonna work on it anyway." I'm like, if she doesn't like it, it's probably because it sucks. You know what I mean? And then it'll just kind of chill out for a while, and it'll just be in my mental Rolodex. And maybe it just needs time, and it needs to be in a different key. And I got to use high gain guitars instead of synths. Maybe it was just a synthy thing or whatever. But anyway, sorry if that was a digression. I forget what.
No, no, no. I just, it's the reaction I get most songwriters say, yeah, if it all came out in 10 minutes, I'm not touching it. There's a reason why that happened.
Yeah, I mean, well, to her credit, I do end up trusting her with it, and she's right. But like, I'll just be laying in bed and I'm just hearing it in my head on a loop, and I'm like, oh man, I could try this. I could try this. It could be something as simple as like swapping snares, which seems like that can be the biggest deal in the world, but you can also kill your track. And yeah, I mean, that's a big thing for me, just in life in general. It's just like, don't overdo it, but it's in my nature. So it helps. And if I manage it, it's a strength. And if I don't, then it's a weakness.
So I've got a quote. I interviewed Christian Lee Hudson, the songwriter, about a month ago, and he said, and I'd love to get your take on this. He said, "My biggest hurdle as a writer is trying to hack my brain to become less critical." So that
Yeah,
kind of like, and I've heard that, like I had Matt Nathanson on, and he said he calls it the assassin. The assassin is that thing on his shoulder
I
who's
like that.
who's always telling him, "Don't write this, don't write this." And he's always battling with that assassin or becoming less critical. So is that ever a struggle for you? Do you find yourself occasionally being too critical as you're writing?
Yeah, I have a problem of like projecting. Like some of my friends make records, and like and then there are people I've been best friends with since high school that have been with me the whole time. And I kind of know their ears a little bit. And I'm like, I wonder if they would like it. I wonder if so and so would like it. And you got to be careful not to try to skew it. And you have to do the same thing with your fan base. And you have to do the same thing with critics. I think it's really important for like what you would call like your North Star, your lighthouse, to be the feeling it gives you. To like, yeah, like the assassin, shut that shit down. I love that. Like that was a big part of Badly. Again, to keep coming back with it to that, just because it was the newest thing, and it's an outlier for us. Like I'd never the kick and snare pattern, even like I've never programmed anything like that. Goom, duh, goom, duh, goom, duh. It's like, bro. And again, the use of a Lynn snare, which was a first for me. A lot of my favorite records on the planet, make use of Lynn drums, but it was never part of our sound. And the chorus is like, it's got the word party in it, which is cool. And like, it's definitely a little bit of a nod to like Fight for Your Right to Party. I'm a huge Beasties fan, love early Def Jam. And like listening to the track, like I know how it made me feel, but it doesn't really bring anything new to the table musically. It doesn't scratch that itch for me where I'm like Bunky Pop, for example, which is a very it's a lot. It's a big ask as a song. There's like ripping double bass, arpeggios, um, you know, tempo changes. It's like it's just asking a lot of the listener. But it kind of scratches an itch that not a lot of other records are scratching. And that doesn't mean that it's better or worse. It's just something that I really needed to hear. And it sounds really exciting and fresh to me. Whereas like Badly is like GECB. It's just like the most bonehead thing in the world, but I love it. And so it's kind of like, don't apologize for what turns you on. Like we're well past the age of the guilty pleasure. That shit doesn't exist anymore. You like it, it's good. Somebody else hates it, they're not wrong either. That's the beauty of this. It's subjective. God, I don't know. Here's the thing though, like, so we locked the master on Texas in April of 2021. That record came out in September of 2021. But everything since April of 2021, the best of what we've worked on is on this record. That's a very long time.
Yeah.
So I was able to hammer some of these to death. Um, Probably a little longer than we should have. But Alexis had her kid, Wilder. And like and it's great because I'm like a crazy uncle again. I'm an uncle by blood to my niece and nephew in Florida, and now like an uncle to her kid. He's incredible. But that gave us an extra year. And thank God, because the couple of extra tracks that we got, like I can't picture the record without. But I probably spent too much time working on this stuff. I wish, God, I guess none of them really just sailed out. I wish. Usually there's a few. Like the final version of Badly was very fast, but the others I kind of workshopped them pretty heavily, which I'm not proud of it. A lot of times the best stuff, like there's a song on Treats called Riot Rhythm, which is the easiest thing I've ever written, the quickest. There's not a lot to it. It's a very simple song, but it's the one and only time in my life that I've dreamed something, woke up, and that was the riff. Like
Hmm.
I've heard people say that, and I was like, bullshit, which is not fair of me, just because I hadn't had that experience. It wasn't real. But yeah, it was like
Was that in the
fall.
middle of the night thing? Like, you woke up
Yeah.
in the middle of the night?
No, I
Yeah.
woke up in the morning and I had a riff in my head in my dream. Dun 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 dun. It's like this really simple little unison bend riff. And that was in my head, and I opened my eyes, and it was still going, and I was like, "You're kidding me!" And like picked up a guitar sitting right there and had it, and then building the track out probably took 3 hours. I had to track some live drums at Tree Fort, but I just ripped off a fill from Wonderwall, like doom da doom da doom da doom da doom da doom da doom. Today is gonna be. That's the intro for Riot Rhythm.
Oh, yeah.
Gakum gakum. Tracked those, but the whole thing took like 3 or 4 hours, and it's like a fan favorite, which means a lot to me. That usually tells me something. I love playing it live. It's one of the best parts of the set, and that one was fucking easy. So yeah, when I have to work like really hard on something, it's not something I would brag about.
Well, I guess that was my next question a little bit is what was the most frustrating one? Maybe you felt like giving up on. Was there a
Yeah,
track here that was just the biggest pain in the ass?
want to start a band? That was a kind of a nightmare. Yeah, I had like the first part of that riff, the ascending part, the da 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 da. In like 2014, it was just some random little thing, that you play when you're doing something else and there's a guitar in your hands. But I didn't have any of the rest of it, and I definitely didn't have the verses. And yeah, it just took us forever. Like it took us a long time. It's a really simple and straightforward song, so it's not even like you can hear it. It's not like it's like yeah, where you're like, a 10-minute opus. It's like, it's pretty straightforward, but I'm hoping that things just kind of sail out for this next batch because yeah, I don't want to wait, 4 years or however many it's been, what I guess, yeah,
Yeah.
just about 4. Yeah.
So the songs that are taking long to create, are you the longer they take, are you more likely to say, "Oh, it's gone on this long, we're gonna finish this damn thing," or
No,
it's
the
just not meant to be?
the flip, yeah, I usually want to abandon it. If it's just like if it's a real headache, I just leave it. Yeah, and then what happens is that there's something there, and the session's not going anywhere. It's a file on your hard drive. It'll be there 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the road, and you can open it up then, and maybe it just needed like a B part, or like I like to call it a best friend. Like maybe it's got like it's just on its own. It's really great, but it's not surrounded by anything that supports it and makes it greater. Um, so yeah, it'll just sit there, and I'm like, you know what? The drums on the bridge are great. Someday I'll come back for those. And maybe 4 years later, a riff or like some chords or like a synth patch inspires something, and I'm like, oh shit, this would be great with that drum break from 4 years ago. That happens all the time.
And you're also in a different emotional state 4 years later, so that's interesting how that song might change in the original intent, right?
Absolutely, and your ears will evolve and start to crave different sounds. I mean, that's been a big part of the story for me. Maybe you were in a phase where you really liked reverb, and like shit's muddy as hell, and there's all these masking issues, and maybe that serves the song, and maybe it destroys it. It just depends on the track. But yeah, maybe a couple years later, you want everything to be drier and tighter, and just to have like maximum tight, punchy speaker impact. And you're better at solving masking issues, so you take that thing, maybe it's a synth riff, you play it on guitar or vice versa, or who knows, and you suddenly know what to do with it. That's a big part of it. Yeah, I mean that's been big for me just as a producer and in the box engineer. I'm not a hardware engineer. Like out of respect for people, I don't know, like Bruce Swedien, rest in peace, was an engineer, a guy who can pick the right mic through the right pre, put together an incredible hardware chain to capture the instrument, whatever it may be, correctly at its best. Like I have not done the work to be able to do that, but I'm getting much better in the box, especially at like, solving masking issues and making space for everything and trying to be a better producer.
Are there particular life events that happened between this album and the last one that were impetuses, I guess,
Yeah.
for the songs on the album?
Yes, absolutely. Like quite a few were written when this happened, May 4th, 2023. Just like knucklehead lifestyle, not living well, caught up to me. Yeah, dude, it almost took me down. Landed in the ER, and but I made it out. And that was from that moment on, there's like my life pre and post that moment. Cause I think leading up to that, I had this like fake ass tough guy, live fast, die whenever, like whatever, I don't care, like blase, which is wow, turned out to be bullshit because when the moment came and, it was like Grim Reaper, so to speak, was literally knocking on my door at, 4 in the morning and I'm in a house alone in Kingston and I'm like, are you fucking, wait, we're not joking right now? And it's like, no, man, you asked for this and it's time to pay the toll. And yeah, I was like, that was a humbling moment. I was essentially like, all of that fucking bullshit, all of that cavalier shit went out the window. It was like 911. I am essentially a fucking like terrified child curled up in a fetal position, begging for my life. That taught me the value of being alive. I mean, I didn't call anybody. I walked out of the ER like 10 hours later. Like I didn't ask anyone to pick me up. I was like, I got myself into this. Everyone else in my life has done everything they can to help me. I'm on my own right now to take care of this shit. I literally walked out of the ER, the little sliding glass doors, hit the sidewalk. I remember it was like stormy, but it hadn't started raining yet, but it was windy and dark out, but it was still beautiful. And I jumped and clicked my fucking heels because I didn't think I was going to walk out. And it was the best moment of my life. Like, I swear to God, because I was like, I'm free. I am fucking free. Cause dude, it was scary. Again, humbling. Humbling. Not that I was arrogant as a human being and especially in my dealings with other people, but again, live fast, die whenever. And then yeah, when the moment arrived, I was like, oh, like you can go to meetings, you can talk, you can do this and that. But when you're faced with the fact that like, yo, you might die right now in a house alone in Kingston, that is fucking sobering. So that was like, I am still giddy. Like my measurement of like what constitutes a good day is like, did I wake up and did I get back in bed alive? Like that changed everything. And that definitely informed the next batch of songs for sure. But yeah, man, that's like that was the forgive all the drama there, but it's a good story. It's like by which I mean the outcome is like it's the best possible outcome. It's not just like, a whack ass war story to me. I think it's man, it's everything. So and again, anybody listening, if you're in the black hole, for real, get some help. You know, shit could change. I think everyone in it feels like you're just marked. That's it. You're one of the ones who doesn't make it. But that's how everyone feels, bro. Everyone feels like you're the one who doesn't make it. Like, welcome to the club. And I mean that, with love. But yeah, dude, that was a big deal in my life for sure.
I think when Mark and I wrote the book, Mark talked about when he finally became sober, it was just a question of feeling like just feeling tired. He was tired of waking up a certain way. He was
Yeah.
tired. It wasn't like a necessarily event like you had. It was just like I'm just over this. Like I'm drinking and I'm not feeling it anymore.
Yeah. It
Um
makes you unhappy, destroys relationships.
yeah.
Yeah,
Um
man. That's great. I wish I felt like that for years. Like, because again, it was like 7 years of abject failure, of trying and failing, of like waking up like hungover, crying, screaming to the fucking heavens, never again. And then you shower, have a meal, and 6 hours later, you feel a little better and you're right back in it. And that's why I was like, I'm just not going to make it. That's why that's Texas. It's an anagram for exits because I was still in it. And I was like, this is it. Like and it wasn't a boo hoo, like, yo, let's see some violins for Derek. I'm not going to make it. I was like, well, this is what it is. Let's have a blast making Texas. It's the last thing I'll be able to make because based on what's happening with my body, that'll be it. And, hey, let's go out with a bang. So yeah, having that moment, it took a gun to my head though. And I'm sorry that that's what it took, but hey, man, better late than never. And God, that's great for Mark and everybody else that just was like, yeah, they didn't have to have that, like, that for me was like my rock bottom moment, you know what I mean? And honestly, I'm still working on alcohol. It's way less of a problem now, but it's like for me, I'm just trying to like slay one thing at a time. So
so how do you know when you're ready to write about that? I mean, it's not like you walked out of the ER and said, "I'm going to write about this." But how do you know when you're ready to write about that
it,
topic?
I feel like I've always written about it, and it's like, and it doesn't ever have to be specific to like the battle with yourself, self destruction. You know what I mean? A lot of the stuff in our tracks is like, here's a fucked up perspective, and then here's an encouraging like rebuttal, for lack of a better word. Like the amount of times we've written a different version of, like I mentioned, Comeback Kid, which is like me putting myself in Alexis's shoes and being like, not reading me the riot act, but like, a version of that, like just being patient and supportive. Like, you got this. Like, I know you're going through it, but you can do this. And I'm going to help you. We'll do it together. That's the story of this record. That's where Becky and Roxette come from. You know what I mean? One friend is struggling and the other has the privilege out of love to help that person. And that happens over and over in a lot of these tracks. Um, yeah, I just feel like it's as good a thing as any to write about, because then you get to indulge, like, the part of you that wants to just write. It's just like a knee jerk reaction for a human being to pick up a pen and spit out the dark stuff, right? And there's plenty of that with us, but it's much harder to write an optimistic song or a song about potential or promise and have it be cool. So I'm always trying to skate that line, and yeah, like "Can I Scream" is an example of like the verses are like, "Yo, it's over." And then the chorus is the response to that, like, "Yo, you can glow even when you're gutted like a buffalo." Like, it's just, yeah, it's all a version of Comeback Kid, I guess.
All right, let's end with this then. I love talking reading with you. We always end our conversations with this. So, who are you reading now? Anything inspirational?
So I have not picked up like a single page of literature since we last spoke, which is very shameful, but tons of nonfiction.
Okay.
Um, I reread the Beasties book. Have you read that?
You know
The
what?
Beastie Boys book?
That's I have wait, which
It's like
uh
it's a doorstopper. It's thick and it's worth it.
I have it. God damn, I have so
So
many books I buy on my
that's
Kindle.
here's the thing though. Like I love their records, but more than that, it's Adam Yauch, rest in peace. I remember in 2012 when he passed. I think he was 47. And I remember thinking, well, he's not young, but he's up there. And like 47 is most definitely not up there. But what I love so much about him is just like him going from, with License to Ill, sort of sending up like misogynistic jerks and then cosplaying as one, then kind of becoming one,
Yeah.
and then very quickly evolving into like a really beautiful, empathetic, compassionate human being and living that way until his dying breath. So that was huge for me. Again, so maybe it's not literature, but it really was. It's kind of a spiritual journey, that book. God, Dante Ross, who worked for Tommy Boy, he's got a book called Son of the City that's really intense. He was deep in with De La Soul, who I've been listening to obsessively for a while. Let's see, Thurston Moore's book was great. Have you put out have you checked out Thurston Moore's book at all?
I had another one. No, I have that's another one I have bought, but and I
Very,
bought my Campbell's. I got to read that one.
but
Yeah.
yeah, Thurston's was very inspiring because it's really just about his story as a fan. Like certainly there's a lot of Sonic Youth material in there, but yeah, it's just his life as a lover of things. That was really beautiful and inspiring. Chris Stein's book was really good, from Blondie. I just read a new Malik biography, which was great. But I do have some good stuff on deck. I've got George Saunders' Liberation Day and some Kathy Acker. But yeah, I need to get back to literature because I can just breeze through nonfiction and it's a great thing to do to stay at home and not be out at a bar. Literature takes a little more work, but it's so rewarding and it stays with you for, just so much longer. But what about you? What have you been reading?
Well, first of all, Derek, if that was an open invitation for you to pitch a book Mark and I wrote, but that's okay.
Oh, dude, I'm sorry. Ben and Mark's book, go read it. It's so fucking good. I'm not kidding. I loved it to death. I truly did. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, I'm
Yeah.
kidding. I'm kidding. So I
Leave
just
that in there though. I mean it. You guys fucking smashed it. I'm sorry.
no, I'm kidding. Um, the book I just devoured, literally devoured, was the new Peter Ames Carlin book, the R.E.M biography.
Oh,
Um,
yes, I have it. I got it on my iPad.
dude, it is so good. The book is amazing because you realize, like, it sounds like from the time they played their first gig together, people are like, "Oh my
Yeah, the
god!"
church
Like,
show.
yeah, the church show, right? Where they like
Yep.
to get into the church, you had to crawl through a closet
Yes, I
in a
know.
crawl space, and people were just like, they were always writing their own songs from the get go. People are like, "Oh wow, like this is another
I
level."
mean, Fred Schneider, like my God, just fearless. That's the word that
Yeah.
comes to mind. All of them really, because they were this like mishmash, complete band and human beings out of time, but doing something that was right out of the gate, just had like a sparkle to it and lots of life. Yeah, extraordinary, dude. It's so weird because there's a little bit of crossover sonically with R.E.M, but like same thing with Pylon. There's a touch, but they were all three like very singular. And God, it's like, yeah, it's the thing. You're like, yo, was it in the water? Like that's the type of thing somebody would usually say. But yeah, really unique bands. I mean, just the guts to be that different, is really
Exactly.
special.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just you would have seen those bands like B-52s or Pylon
Yeah.
and been like, "What like, no what it this doesn't sound like anything."
y- Yeah.
And
I
that
know.
our daughter, took a class called The History of Music in Athens,
Oh my
and
God. Hell
can you
yeah.
imagine that?
I would
Yeah,
audit that shit. Is that the word, right? Would just get
yeah,
in? Yeah.
and learn about all those bands, and even today, there's still tons of great music coming out of Athens.
Yeah.
Uh
I got to
uh,
shout out oh, you've been to 40 Watt. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We played 40 Watt a couple of years back and it was such an honor. Like, it was yeah, it was incredible. You could feel it in the walls, just the history.
The best book on that scene, um, I'll get you the title, but the woman is a professor at
Yes,
UVA.
I've 3/4 of the way through this. Cool Town, How
Yes.
Athens yes, Grace Elizabeth Hale.
Yeah, Cool Town, and that is, she's a professor at UVA, but she went to Georgia and was in that scene when they were all there. And that book is fantastic because and that's kind of the definitive book on that era because it's not like a gossipy book. It's
Yeah,
here are the sociological, the political factors,
totally.
and you realize like all of them came like that scene basically started in the art department.
At
People that
at
couldn't play
at
music.
UGA,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, didn't Michael's old or somebody that was a professor at UGA directed the video for It's the End of the World, right?
yeah,
I
yeah,
I think that's the case. I'm blanking on his name. Yeah, it's End of World as We Know It. Great track. That video is amazing too. It's like skater kid wandering around in like,
yeah,
like an old dilapidated house. But yeah, man, Athens is fascinating.
yeah.
I need to
Um,
finish it. Yeah, I'm at like 65%.
Yeah, it's a great book. It's really because you realize like that you may think that those scenes kind of emerge, but there's so many underlying factors
Yeah, that contribute.
that
You know,
contribute.
what's interesting is like we haven't talked about the Cars, but the Cars are a massive, massive reference for us on this record. I mean, I grew up with them. I can't remember my life without the Cars. They're almost like an Athensy band, even though like Rick was born in Baltimore and they formed in Cleveland. But it's eccentric in that like in that same way. And like Rick is so fascinating to me because I mean his dad worked for NASA. He was a systems analyst. So he's got brains in his blood. Rick's a brilliant guy. He's a Dylan fanatic, so he knows what people would agree on as like a really heavy, poetic, weighty lyric. And he's like, you know what? I think I'm going to go the other way. Like, let the good times roll, shake it up, like this, like cheap, lazy rock and roll language. But he embeds that stuff in brilliant, brilliant songs. And again, like a really brilliant guy, singular. And like I think 4 or 5 songs on our record start with like low gain guitars, palm muted, downstroke eighth notes, which is like half of the Cars hits. And every time you hear me doing that, I'm full on just saying thank you to Rick Ocasek. And I mean, Roxette Rick, the track itself, the Rick in her last name is a tribute to Rick. I mean, I'd call it an Easter egg, but it's like just screaming in plain sight.
This is the first side of their debut album. Imagine back then you
Yeah.
actually put the needle on the vinyl, and these are the first 3 songs. Good Times Roll, My Best Friend's Girl, Just What I Needed.
Ridiculous.
Could you
I know.
imagine that as a debut?
I
And then
know.
Don't
I
You
know.
Stop as the 5th, and then the next side is You're All I've Got Tonight, Bye Bye Love, Moving in Stereo?
I know. It's just a fucking embarrassment of riches is the word to describe it. Like that's nuts, man.
I mean, I would love to have been that old and to put on that album and been like, "Hol
Yeah.
like, holy shit,
I
everything on
know.
that one debut."
I know, and it's like the late '70s, early '80s. Like they're certainly aware of what's happening in probably New York and the UK with the Dolls and then the Pistols, and everything's very aggressive. And then it gets, post punk is very brainy. and a lot less sugary than the cars ended up being. So they're this like crazy band out of time, but so undeniably great that it connects on a massive level. But I can't remember my life without them. Like those cassettes where that's what we listened to sitting in South Florida traffic with my mom. And yeah, I just come to appreciate them more and more.
It's
Rick, this is
amazing.
crazy, but Rick is actually buried like 15 miles from me. And I read a book on Ben Orr, which like his childhood
Yeah.
friend wrote, and it's very sweet. It's just a love letter. It's not particularly academic, which I think is great. It's cool. I don't really want that a book about the cars that's academic. But yeah, I'm like, should I drive over there and put some flowers down, or does that make me like real fucking crazy? And like, do I care? No, I'm definitely gonna do it. Wow, what a band.
And that's it for today's episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget, you can find all the episodes on all major streaming platforms and also at the Songwriters on Process website. That is at songwritersonpodcast.com. Pre-2020, this was not a pod. I was transcribing all of the interviews. So you can find all of them, hundreds of them, many hundreds of them, on the Songwriters on Process website. You'll find both the transcribed interviews and the pod there. Take a deep dive, spend a day. These are great conversations with songwriters just about the writing process. Also, my book, Desolation, a Heavy Metal Memoir by Mark Morton with Benno Papari, is out now worldwide on Hachette Books. You can find it online in all major bookstores. Mark is a good friend. He is the guitarist in the metal band Lamb of God, and it's his memoir. Again, that is called Desolation, a Heavy Metal Memoir by Mark Morton with Benno Papari. I am biased, but that's a damn good book. My email, ben@songwritersonprocess.com. Send me an email. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love suggestions, questions, comments. People always email me and tell me who they want to see on the pod next. You never know. Send me an email, ben@songwritersonprocess.com. That's it for me, everyone. Have a great day.